If I don't race, why do I need to do anything to my motorcycle?
But you don't make tremendous power by just dumping it into your motor. It's a big negative.
If you are planning a cross-country trip and you're going to load up the bags and the tour pack and then ride double, and you don't have enough oomph to get up the hill, there's another reason why you would change it.
Today, we are going to be talking about performance stuff for Harley-Davidson motorcycles. All the questions that you guys asked, I have 21 questions here that I'm going to be asking Dan and Adam. So the first question, should I be running non-ethanol in my bike?
I would state that if you had an older carbureted motorcycle, it would be a very good thing to run. But the most important thing to know is if your motorcycle was tuned with regular gasoline with ethanol, you probably shouldn't just be putting non-ethanol in. It will run better with the fuel that it is tuned for.
So number 2, guys, what is the benefit of Headwork?
We get asked that a lot. So with cylinder heads, the long answer is if you have an engine where you want to, change the cam timing, increase the displacement, and you need more volumetric efficiency and/or, what I'm saying is airflow, you want that power curve to go out wider, you want that cylinder fill to be greater, then that's when you'll look at the cylinder heads. So the answer really is, it's a long answer to whatever the equation is. I mean, it's,
Not so easy to answer.
There's a lot to it.
Number 3, when should you get bigger injectors?
You're going to need bigger injectors whenever you've done something to the engine that requires a much larger amount of fuel. Now, we've certainly had instances where when you put a cam and you tune everything to it, where even just a cam can necessitate a new injector being needed. If you go to a big bore kit, it's a guarantee you're going to need a bigger injector, and then it depends on what your output level is as to which injector you need. So do you just put a big injector in a stock engine and expect it to do something? No, definitely not, but you will need that as you increase the performance of your engine.
And to add to that, it's not a horsepower driven thing, as in we talk to a lot of folks who purchase a redshift cam for an engine that now makes a lot of torque. They might have picked up 20, 30 foot-pounds of torque in the riding range. It's amazing. And this torque has created such a fuel demand, because when you roll that throttle on, whether you're racing this thing or you're running around, it doesn't really matter. If the power, as you call it, the fuel demand is so rapid, needed so quickly that the smaller injector can't respond quick enough, even when it's at full pulse. It's just too slow. It's always latent behind the curve. So we always want to get the injector sized right so that, as Adam said, it meets the demand of the engine.
Number 4, will a throttle body make more horsepower?
If you take a stock engine and put a bigger throttle body on, you will likely be very disappointed in the results. It will slow the airspeed down and it won't make more power. There is a point as you start to increase the performance of the engine where you have to put a bigger throttle body on, where it will become a limitation. But we've even proven in our sport touring level kits where you can make large amounts of torque with that stock throttle body and keep the airspeed up. So there's instances where we would actually want you to keep the throttle body stock, even in a big bore kit, to give you that early throttle response.
I remember the early days of testing of that, and you definitely like the results of the larger intake manifold with the stock throttle body, the cast getting rid of the composite material, which is a good thing for reliability too. But the one thing I did remember from that test was it kind of reminded me of the Scout intake development, that even though the dyno results really weren't there with the, going from the stock to a 62 or 64 or whatever it was, that it did have a different feel though. I think you called it back then available air in the plenum. With I remember the Scout, had that enormous torque that was in that air design that you had made on that intake, and it had a little bit of that, but it just doesn't show up in the dyno. If you have the airflow demand in the engine, it's going to be a nice gain, and if you don't, it's a lot of money, and I'm not sure you'll be happy with the results of it.
If you're trying to produce big horsepower and you have a big bore kit and you have a big cam and compression and headwork, you're going to need a big throttle body to be able to make horsepower. Anything where you're talking horsepower at the top, you need a very big throttle body. But you need to balance that with your package and whether you're street riding, race riding. So there are absolutely instances where you need a big throttle body, but you need to know where that occurs.
Right.
And it's at the bigger power levels.
I'm going to ask number 5 and number 6 together because it has to do with E85. Number 5 is, would you recommend E85? Number 6 does E85 give more power and fuel economy?
I think those are all large no's from us. You know, these engines, from the stock engines to what we're doing here, they're not designed or tuned for E85. And there's a whole lot that goes into that, but just remember, you know, everything is done with an E10 or an E15 at the most. So when you go to E85, you're now 85% alcohol, and alcohol has a substantially less energy density than gasoline. So what does that mean? If you dump E85 in your motorcycle and tune to it, you may be able to make another horsepower or two, but the reality is you're wasting your time. The engine needs to be designed with more compression. It's going to be 20 to 30% larger injectors to be able to get the fuel in, to be able to just have the same energy density of what you already had at E10 or E15. So if you design an engine to run on E85, it can make tremendous power, but you don't make tremendous power by just dumping it into your motor. It's a big negative, and it's very bad for the internals of your fuel pump, for your gas tank. These things were not designed for E85. So
what about the fuel economy part?
Well, you're putting a fuel in that has a lower energy density, which means you have to burn a lot more fuel to make the same power. That doesn't sound like you're going to get better miles per gallon to me. So, and again, if you've tuned it for E85, if you've designed the engine for E85, yes, it can be a very clean, efficient way of making power, but you can't just dump it in an engine and expect it to be magic.
And we've got the problem of the retention of water. That's a whole nother thing with the alcohol. And we're going to dry out the top end because we don't have any lubricity in the fuel. And then we didn't even touch on the corrosion part of it. So it's
if your motorcycle sits, E85 is known to separate. So now the gasoline, the 15% gas, is going to separate out from the fuel, or the 85% alcohol. So if your bike sits for a couple months, oh boy, I hope you don't have E85 in it, because what's going to happen is that alcohol is just going to be absorbing moisture out of the air. It's going to be a tough run when you finally get this thing, started again, because your fuel's not mixed up. Your engine was not designed for 85. If it was, great. If it's not, don't use it.
Now, number 7 is something I hear all the time. If I don't race, why do I need to do anything to my motorcycle? I get that question asked all the time. So who wants to take that one?
I'll start it and finish it.
Yeah, perfect.
That's a very broad question. So we'll just try to narrow that down.
Okay.
If your engine makes a good torque curve, it has a nice torque curve, it makes plenty of power for you, you can ride it, you can go over the hills, you can pass cars, you can do everything with the ease that you don't feel infringed upon, or you're worried about you can't accelerate fast enough to get around a car. If all of that fits your criteria, I would agree. You should just leave it the way that it is. But most of the people that contact us, the shops that contact us, they're looking to improve specific areas of the curve. And a lot of it is accelerating from off idle, low end power to the mid-range transition. They want to go around a car a little easier when they're passing. They want to merge onto highway traffic, easier. They might live out in the Midwest and the speed limit's 80 miles an hour or higher on the interstate, right, and they need to be able to, they just need more power. Or I ride double, and when I ride double, I'm always downshifting to go up a hill or a mountain or whatever case may be. And that's where where I think we shine. But that's not to diminish the fact that if somebody is completely happy with what they have, I'm not really sure you should change anything.
You know, a lot of the reasons why I would say, why would I change it if I'm happy with it? You know, it's the simple things. It's the sound. Are you happy with the sound of it? Is it too loud? Is it too quiet? Sometimes with stock bikes, they literally are just too quiet, and it's difficult for the vehicles around you to hear.
Do you have a noisy engine?
Sometimes engines are noisy, and it's nice to have a little bit of exhaust note to kind of tamp it all down.
Or improve the valve train so that you could quiet up that engine noise. Yeah.
You know, there's someone that we have a lot of respect for in the industry, and he made a statement many years ago that's very, very true, and it's Arlen Ness, and he said, not everybody wants to be like everybody else. So there's a lot of merit to, you know, we all go and buy the same motorcycles at the dealership. There's a lot of merit to making these things your own. And some people do that cosmetically, and some people do that with performance. I want my bike to sound a little bit different and run a little bit different than everyone else.
And some do both, right?
Good
and some
point.
do both.
Excellent point.
Number 8, a technical question. Can you explain compression?
Well, I mean, how do we make power? I mean, the engine's a pump, and it has a set of whatever the stock cylinder head flows, and we have cam timing that was done by factory engineers to decide when the valve opens, closes, and how we make pressure. Pressure is how we turn all that into something with the combustion process. When I first started working on these motorcycles, a big twin engine, a shovel head, had about maybe 8-to-1. There were some engines that were 7-to-1 compression. That's almost something like a tractor, a flathead tractor on a farm, right?
And a CVOST is 11.4-to-1
That's
compression
incredible.
from the factory.
That's incredible.
11.4-to-1.
And burns pump fuel.
Look at compression as it's the pressure that we're trapping in the engine to then throw fuel and burn. But really, you need to look at it as one of the variables in the entire engine package. So if you have a stock engine, it has a certain compression. If we're going to build a performance engine, it'd be at a different level. So it's merely one of the pieces of the puzzle to make it all work.
Selecting the compression is a mathematical equation of the whole engine rather than say, I want you to run 11-to-1. Well, we don't know that. We have to do a calculation to figure that.
As all of our systems get more complicated, the more and more compression we're able to handle, in the engine reliably. I remember when I started in the industry, cranking compressions on Harleys were, I would say, almost unbelievably low compared to what they are today. If you went over 190 cold cranking, you would have a hard time starting the motorcycle. There's factory motorcycles now that crank 250, which that's fantastic.
So moving along, we're at number 9 now. Why should I put a cam in my bike if it already has one? There's a difference between the cam that came in your bike and an aftermarket performance cam.
So what I've always said is the cam is kind of the brains of the engine. It's the orchestrator, what do they call that? It's the conductor of the orchestra, and it's effectively telling the engine when to open, when to close, how to trap the pressure. So why would you change your cam is it changes the mannerisms of your motorcycle. It changes the torque curve, how it rides, how it responds.
How it accelerates.
How it sounds too.
Yep.
You know, we always kind of laugh that some of the stock bikes sound like a sewing machine. And when you put a performance cam in, you hear that Harley idle. So some people will put a cam in just for that chop, just for that sound.
Let's go to number 10. Do you have to tune a motorcycle if you put slip-ons and an air cleaner on?
And that is a definite yes, you do. And I'll tell you why. We proved it on your first motorcycle. You made less horsepower than stock when you put slip-ons on and you did not tune your motorcycle.
Right.
It sounded good.
You made noise.
It sounded a lot better. It sounded faster. It probably perceived that it was faster, but the reality is it made less power. And guess what? I just did that to my motorcycle. I just put a slip-on and an air cleaner on. I haven't tuned it yet, and it runs worse everywhere. It sounds great, but it runs worse.
To add what you just said, it's widely done. in the industry. It's just, there's people that are putting mufflers on all the time. And you might get lucky if you have the proper baffle in it and it doesn't variate the tune, but a lot of guys pick these big, giant holes and they want to make as much noise as they can with the catalyst head pipe. And we're not saying that, you know, I mean, this is outside of our wheelhouse anyway. We don't do this. We don't offer these kind of services or packages or various things along that line. So it is a question that our answer might vary from people that are actually selling these products.
But the bike will run.
It'll
It
run.
just won't get any performance gains.
It is a proven fact that when you put these parts on a motorcycle, your power will go down. But if you do not tune for it, it's going to run fine.
If you did it for sound,
It's
you've
going to be
mission
okay.
accomplished. You know?
Okay. Number 11. My bike is fine. Why should I change anything?
Define fine. What does that mean? Fine as it sounds good, fine as it runs cool, fine as it has good gas mileage, fine as it has more power than I want. All of those things could equate to you don't need to do anything. You know, again, each person has a motorcycle, as Adam said earlier about how you personalize your motorcycle related to the way Arlen Ness so eloquently said it. It depends on each person and what you're trying to accomplish out of it. If you want to go up a hill faster and you don't want to downshift a gear, there's a reason why you do it.
Right.
You know, if you want to have that, you call it the chop at the idle thing because you just love the way that sounds, it makes you smile, well then there's a reason there. If you are planning a cross-country trip and you're going to load up the bags and the tour pack and then ride double and you don't have enough oomph to get up the hill, there's another reason why you would change it. But if you can't come up with a good logical reason, I think I agree with Adam says, just keep on trucking with what you got.
I've always made the statement that prior to 2014, I had to be paid to ride a stock Harley-Davidson. And I was joking, but the reality is, when you go way back, the motorcycles were not as refined as they are today.
The new motorcycles are really good.
The new motorcycles are tremendous. So especially like I always say 2014 Project Rushmore, that's when they really made a
Big
modern
changes.
motorcycle that out of the box, off the showroom floor, I'd be happy riding bone stock.
Yeah.
Yep.
Now, long term, I personally wouldn't. I'd want a little bit of sound. I'd want a little bit of something. But they are making a motorcycle today that is so good, that has enough power to get out of its own way. A modern Harley is fantastic. So don't feel like you have to change anything because they're so good. But there's a lot that can be done to improve them if you want to.
I'm going to answer number 12. It says, can you travel with a big motor? And I would say absolutely. I travel all the time. You guys seen I've been coast to coast on big motor Harley-Davidson. Zippers Performance, Sport Touring Kit, 2-up with my wife from Tennessee to California. I've been all over this country with a big bore kit on my bike. And what I love about it is I have the reliability to travel, but when I get to that red light and somebody pulls up beside me, it's a whole nother level of performance that I can just unleash with the twist of the throttle.
So when you say big motor, the only thing that I would add is motors can be built a whole different ways. And you can build a racing engine. And if you build a racing engine, it's probably not what I would be riding across driving across the country.
Right.
The majority of what we're designing here are not race engines. If it's a race engine, it's going to be something very, very special. There's a lot of very reliable big bore options that you can do you can ride them all around the world and everything will be just fine.
Yeah.
But as you know, there are levels of performance where you can get to a point where, would you ride your Street Glide with the Stage 4 across the country?
No.
Probably not.
No.
Could you?
Yeah, I could.
Absolutely you could. But that's not the bike I would want to be on in rain or really bad conditions. Like when you and your family came up from Key West, that would have been a terrible motorcycle to be on in hurricane conditions.
Yeah, you're right about that.
So it would have made it.
I want to clarify something else too that I don't want it to get glossed over. When you guys are working on the development of a package, it's probably not very well known that we work on the efficiency of the engine, the heat management of the engine. Very intricate times put into how the torque curve is going to project out from off idle to, right? And so, like you were saying, when you run the Sport Tour deal, and you're running it down the road at good speeds, it's getting great fuel mileage because the engine requires very little throttle position to actually move this mass down the road. And these things don't happen by accident. They're all very deliberate in there. I can't say what other companies do. We don't know. You know, we kind of live in our own world here. But there's a lot of emphasis that goes into that, really, from the cams all the way up to big bore kits, all the way up to cylinder heads, all the way up to inductions. And it's all calculated that way. And that's part of what Adam does with, you know, he looks at things from an engineering perspective in a three-dimensional viewpoint of all the way to the end, so we know exactly how it's going to produce its power. And we're going to do it with efficiency, not with waste. So that's a little long-winded, but it happens here every day, and we just kind of forget about it, you know.
Long story short, guys, call Zippers Performance, tell them how you ride, where you ride, or how you see yourself riding in the future, and they can put a package together, whether it be just a cam or a big bore kit. They can put something together for your motorcycle. We've already answered this, but we'll do it again. What cam should I put in a bike?
Well, that's a great question, and I can't answer it, but I can answer it. If you're asking what cam should I put in my bike, what you should do is